I thought I had it under control, that NeoPhoenix would be my legacy, revolutionizing the financial world. But when you play against the system, you learn the price of ambition is higher than anyone can imagine. I built an empire and watched it turn into a house of cards. Now I'm caught between truth and the lies that sustained me for so long.
NeoPhoenix is a scam. Here's the proof.
This isn't just the story of a company's collapse. It's about betrayal, power, and the one question everyone fears. How far would you go to save what you've built? Inside the Bitcoin bubble, is this the next big crash?
The cryptocurrency market, with its promises of decentralization and financial freedom, has always been a magnet for both visionaries and opportunists. At the heart of this story is Ethan Caldwell, a charismatic visionary and founder of the cryptocurrency exchange, NeoPhoenix. Armed with extraordinary persuasion skills, Ethan positioned his platform as a safe haven amidst the chronic volatility of the crypto market. To the public, he's a hero, a savior for everyday investors. But behind the scenes, his actions tell a very different story. On the other side stands Rachel Myers, a relentless financial analyst with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. Known for her unshakable integrity, Rachel carries the burden of past failures, high-profile financial schemes ignored by powerful figures despite her warnings. Seeking redemption, she turns her attention to NeoPhoenix's meteoric rise. However, when she requests detailed financial records, an unexpected email lands in her inbox. Releasing investors' private data violates their SEC-protected rights. Comply with our request or face legal consequences. Although the sender is one of NeoPhoenix's attorneys, Rachel senses Ethan's personal touch behind the threat. His defensive tactics only deepen her suspicion that something is seriously wrong. The tension escalates when a series of suspicious Bitcoin transfers, totaling billions of dollars, are traced through Ethan's platform. What initially appears to be legitimate business expansion morphs into a deeper mystery. Who's moving these enormous sums? And more importantly, where is the money going? While Ethan and Rachel appear to be moving in opposite directions, they share a dark connection neither fully realizes. Years ago, Ethan, a former Wall Street programmer, was accused of insider trading, a charge he still vehemently denies. Rachel, however, was one of the analysts who helped build the case against him. Though they've never met, their stories are intertwined in ways they are only beginning to uncover. The stakes are raised when Rachel receives an anonymous email. The subject line is simple but devastating. NeoPhoenix is a scam. Here's the proof. The attached document reveals allegations of money laundering, suspicious fund transfers, and evidence that NeoPhoenix might be the epicenter of a global fraud scheme. Simultaneously, NeoPhoenix floods social media with glowing headlines. NeoPhoenix expands global reach with record-breaking transactions. Behind the charisma and public admiration, Ethan faces a dilemma few can see. To keep NeoPhoenix at the top, he made deals with a shadowy partner, someone who now seems to hold the company's financial reins. With each billion-dollar transaction, Ethan feels control slipping further away. Yet, the promise of financial freedom for millions of investors keeps him in the game, blinding him to the risks. Meanwhile, Rachel battles her own demons. After years of fighting to expose financial fraud, she bears the scars of courtroom battles and character assassinations. But the email she's received and the scale of the suspicious transactions propel her into action. She knows that if her suspicions are correct, NeoPhoenix's collapse won't just be a corporate failure. It will be a seismic shock to the financial world, with consequences rippling across entire economies. As the investigation deepens, Ethan's house of cards teeters on the brink of collapse. Unbeknownst to him, the greatest threat to his empire lies within. His shadowy partner is siphoning company funds, putting everything at risk. At the same time, Rachel closes in on the truth, armed with evidence that could not only dismantle NeoPhoenix, but also expose Ethan's darkest secrets. The clash between regulator and entrepreneur seems inevitable. Yet what starts as a professional duel threatens to become something far more personal, as past secrets surface and NeoPhoenix's true motives come to light. Would you sacrifice everything you've built to escape the lies you created? Or would you double down, knowing the stakes are life and death? The rise of NeoPhoenix in the financial market was no accident. Located in the heart of Manhattan, the company became a symbol of the transformative power of cryptocurrencies, occupying an imposing building that had once housed a traditional investment bank. Ethan Caldwell chose the location strategically, a provocative reminder that the new financial era had arrived to replace Wall Street's old guard. Inside NeoPhoenix, the environment reflected a controlled chaos that fueled the ambition of its employees. Analysts spent endless hours tracking cryptocurrency fluctuations, while engineers tirelessly refined algorithms to ensure faster and more secure trades. Ethan, however, was rarely in the office. His meetings took place in exclusive venues, luxurious rooftop restaurants or private clubs frequented by investors and tech entrepreneurs. It was in these settings that he built his network of allies and enemies. Rachel Myers operated in a more modest but equally intense setting. The SEC was a bureaucratic entity struggling to keep pace with rapid financial innovation. Rachel was accustomed to the frantic pace and the weight of decisions that could destroy careers or save economies. Despite her focus, the name Ethan Caldwell still stirred something in her. Revisiting his case brought back memories from years ago, when she helped gather the evidence that nearly destroyed his career. She questioned whether Ethan had truly been guilty, or simply a scapegoat for a system that needed a public fall guy. Ethan had not forgotten Rachel either. Though they had never met in person, he knew who she was and saw her as the face of the system that betrayed him. Just hearing her name unsettled him, reigniting old resentments. To Ethan, Rachel symbolized everything wrong with traditional institutions, a rigid system that protected the powerful while attacking anyone daring to play outside conventional rules. Within NeoPhoenix, David Zhang was beginning to feel the weight of his choices. During a meeting, he attempted to question the fate of transferred funds, only to be silenced by a reproachful glance from his superior. At the end of the day, he started recording logs of suspicious transactions, saving them on a hidden flash drive. Later, an anonymous text appeared on his phone. "Be careful what you know, David. We're watching." Recently, he had begun storing incriminating data on his personal laptop, fearing the inevitable fallout. His probing questions in meetings started to irritate his superiors. He felt he was racing against time but remained uncertain how far he was willing to go. Meanwhile, Mr. C was no longer a silent figure but a growing threat. During a late-night call, he ordered Ethan to approve a $2 billion transfer to an offshore account tied to a suspicious entity. "If you don't do it, I'll handle it my way," Mr. C said in a chilling tone. Ethan felt control slipping away from NeoPhoenix, yet confronting Mr. C seemed to risk not only his legacy, but his life as well. On a broader scale, NeoPhoenix's instability triggered panic in the market. Investors began withdrawing funds en masse from smaller exchanges, and Bitcoin's value plummeted by 15% within 48 hours. In Washington, politicians debated stricter cryptocurrency regulations, while TV analysts warned, if NeoPhoenix falls, the entire market could collapse. The financial media worldwide covered the growing instability, with many pointing fingers at NeoPhoenix as a potential catalyst for a systemic crash. Amid this chaos, Ethan had a brief encounter with a young investor at a public event. The young man, who had invested his savings into the market, approached Ethan with admiration and hope, believing that NeoPhoenix could be his gateway to financial freedom. The meeting left Ethan torn between pride in his vision and the weight of knowing his platform was on precarious ground. Rachel, on the other hand, met with a former NeoPhoenix employee who approached her in secrecy. He described the relentless pressure to overlook irregularities in financial transactions and revealed that he had been forced out after questioning the board's decisions. This encounter reinforced Rachel's sense of urgency, realizing that Ethan's actions extended beyond financial charts. They involved real people placing blind trust in his leadership. As the investigations deepened, Ethan and Rachel inched closer to an inevitable confrontation. At the same time, David Jung wrestled with whether to expose the truth, and Mr. C prepared his next move. The tension spiraled as the stakes rose, pushing all players into a game where the cost of losing could be catastrophic. NeoPhoenix had become the centerpiece of a frenzied cryptocurrency market. Yet Ethan Caldwell felt the reins slipping from his grasp. Rachel Myers' shocking revelations about billions in suspicious transfers had only fueled speculation that the company was on the brink of collapse. Behind NeoPhoenix's glamorous facade, its real lifeline wasn't just its exchange platform, it was the revolutionary Phoenix coin, a so-called stablecoin powered by cutting-edge financial algorithms. Marketed as the ultimate answer to volatility, Phoenix coin seemed like a beacon of innovation. But behind closed doors, the reality was far grimmer. Phoenix coin operated on a model eerily reminiscent of the infamous Terra Luna collapse, a precarious algorithmic stablecoin whose stability relied on arbitrage mechanisms and continuous capital inflows. Under the pressure of Mr. C, Ethan's enigmatic partner, NeoPhoenix had doubled down on sustaining this fragile system. Yet cracks were forming. Massive sell-offs of Phoenix coins were destabilizing its value, and a jittery market, already spooked by swirling rumors, began to panic. Meanwhile, Rachel Myers and her team at the SEC uncovered new evidence. A whistleblower from NeoPhoenix had handed over detailed financial records exposing the company's reserves. They were shockingly insufficient to maintain the coin's promised stability. Worse still, portions of those reserves were tied up in high-risk assets, making a full-blown collapse not a question of if, but when. Ethan, desperate to prevent catastrophe, confronted Mr. C during a tense behind-closed-doors meeting at NeoPhoenix's posh headquarters. "We need more time. One more capital injection, and we can stabilize Phoenix coin," Ethan pleaded. Mr. C remained icy and immovable. "Do you really think you can give me orders, Ethan? I've handed you everything: funding, access to investors. Phoenix coin is my creation, not yours. If you can't handle this, I'll find someone who can." The threat wasn't veiled, it was real. Ethan left the meeting with a bitter taste of powerlessness. For now, he issued an urgent directive to his team: prop up Phoenix coin's value by using the remaining reserves to buy back tokens and halt the downward spiral. Rachel watched as the situation unraveled. Analysts on TV warned of a looming domino effect in the crypto world. Social media exploded with heartbreaking accounts from small investors facing financial ruin. Even NeoPhoenix's competitors were feeling the tremors. Rachel knew she had to act quickly, but internal resistance at the SEC made her job harder. Senior officials hesitated, wary of the political fallout of taking a public stand against a titan like NeoPhoenix. Meanwhile, David Jung, the senior NeoPhoenix analyst who had provided Rachel with the damning documents, had gone missing. After being confronted by his superiors, David disappeared without a trace. Rachel feared he might be under surveillance, or worse, silenced. But the evidence he'd provided was damning enough for her to secure a warrant. Time was slipping away, but Rachel was determined to uncover the truth. Back at NeoPhoenix, chaos reigned. Ethan, flanked by advisors and lawyers, obsessively monitored Phoenix coin's nosediving value. Every effort to stabilize it was obliterated by panicked investors dumping their holdings. During a crisis meeting with his PR team, Ethan clung to the hope of salvaging NeoPhoenix's image. "We need to assure investors everything is under control," Ethan said, his voice strained. "No one's going to believe that, Ethan. We need a real plan," one director countered. But Mr. C wasn't interested in damage control. Late at night, he phoned Ethan with a chilling directive: approve a billion-dollar transfer to offshore accounts. "It's for the investors' protection," Mr. C said, his tone making it clear there was no room for debate. Ethan knew these transfers would be the smoking gun that could incriminate him. Rachel finally secured the green light to raid NeoPhoenix's servers. Backed by federal agents, the SEC moved in. What they uncovered confirmed their worst fears. NeoPhoenix had drained Phoenix Coin's reserves to manipulate market prices. The billion-dollar transfers were part of an intricate web of money laundering funneled through offshore tax havens. News of the investigation broke like wildfire, sending the market into full-blown chaos. Phoenix Coin's value plummeted by 80% within hours, dragging Bitcoin and other major cryptocurrencies down with it. Investors scrambled to withdraw their funds, leaving exchanges on the brink of collapse. As the crisis deepened, Ethan tried to reach Mr. C, but every call went unanswered. NeoPhoenix had become the epicenter of a financial earthquake reminiscent of the Terra Luna meltdown. Thousands of small investors were wiped out, while institutional players scrambled to distance themselves from the wreckage. Ethan, now cornered, faced an impossible choice: step into the spotlight and admit his role in the scandal to salvage his reputation, or let Mr. C continue pulling the strings and accept his role as a pawn in an ever-expanding disaster. The clock was ticking, and the world was watching. Would Ethan make the ultimate sacrifice to expose the truth, or cling to the illusion of control until the very end? As the market spiraled into chaos, Phoenix Coin lay in ruins, and NeoPhoenix fell under investigation. The tension reached a boiling point, unearthing betrayals and backdoor deals. Ethan Caldwell found himself surrounded by adversaries and unreliable allies, while Rachel Myers navigated an increasingly corrupted political landscape shaped by financial interests. David Zhang, the senior analyst who had leaked incriminating documents to Rachel, had vanished, leaving a shadow of influence over NeoPhoenix. During a high-stakes emergency meeting with NeoPhoenix executives, Ethan uncovered a chilling truth. Part of the board was negotiating with external investors for a hostile takeover. Among them was Philip Keene, a former ally of Ethan, now willing to save his own skin by aligning with the elusive and dangerous Mr. C. Ethan confronted Philip in his office, fury boiling beneath his calm exterior. "You think you can take me down? Everything you have, Philip, is because of me." Philip, composed, delivered a calculated response. "It's not personal, Ethan. It's survival. You built this, but you've lost control, and we'll all sink with you if things don't change." This betrayal rocked Ethan to his core. Trust was no longer an option. Determined to prevent Philip and Mr. C from taking full control, Ethan began secretly recording conversations and collecting evidence to expose his rivals. But with each risky move, his isolation deepened. Meanwhile, Rachel Myers faced mounting pressure. The leak about NeoPhoenix drew attention from powerful lobbyists tied to the crypto industry. These players were desperately trying to sway Washington to avoid stricter regulations following the collapse. Among them was Amanda Blake, a former college acquaintance of Rachel, now a high-profile political strategist. Amanda proposed a seemingly beneficial deal over a discreet lunch meeting. "Rachel, you know how these things work. If the SEC pushes too hard, the entire market suffers, and you'll be the one people blame, but we can help." Rachel, sensing the veiled manipulation, responded icily. "Help how, Amanda? Protect the investors or your clients?" Amanda dangled promises of additional resources for future investigations, but Rachel refused. The meeting only solidified her resolve, revealing the lengths to which political forces would go to undermine her efforts. As suspicions of Mr. C's political connections grew, Rachel realized she might be fighting a battle far bigger than she had anticipated. Back at NeoPhoenix, Ethan sought external reinforcements. Reaching out to investors who had profited from NeoPhoenix's rise, he pitched a high-risk proposition: inject capital to stabilize the company in exchange for majority control. One such investor was Alexander Grayson, a billionaire known for thriving on financial gambles. "Why would I put my money into a sinking ship, Ethan?" Grayson asked during a tense video call. "Because you know if NeoPhoenix collapses, the entire market could crumble. You thrive on risk. This is your chance to be on the winning side, amid the chaos." Grayson showed interest but set a condition. Ethan had to present a concrete plan to neutralize Mr. C, whose financial maneuvers were destabilizing any recovery effort. The ultimatum forced Ethan into a greater dilemma: Betray Mr. C and risk his wrath, or maintain the status quo and watch NeoPhoenix sink further into despair. At the SEC, the clock was ticking. Rachel had less than 48 hours to gather enough evidence for a full-scale lawsuit against NeoPhoenix. Without it, the case risked being dismissed due to mounting political pressure. In a bold move, Rachel pursued damning evidence against Mr. C herself. With help from a Department of Justice contact, she obtained partial banking records linking Mr. C to offshore accounts, though the documentation was incomplete. To complicate matters, NeoPhoenix's legal team filed an injunction against the SEC, accusing Rachel of overreach and attempting to halt the investigation. The legal battle grew more heated, threatening Rachel's credibility and career. At NeoPhoenix, another crisis erupted. Internal systems were compromised, with critical files deleted and data manipulated. Suspicions pointed to Philip Keene, but Ethan lacked definitive proof. Amid the chaos, Mr. C tightened his grip on Ethan. In a chilling phone call, he delivered an ultimatum. "This is your last chance, Ethan. Approve the final transfer or I'll make sure you lose everything, not just the company, but yourself." Ethan knew that greenlighting the transfer would mean NeoPhoenix's demise, but hesitation carried equal peril. With time running out, the stage was set for a showdown that would determine the fate of everyone involved. Chaos in the cryptocurrency market reached a new peak when NeoPhoenix abruptly announced the suspension of all Phoenix coin trading. The decision, accompanied by a vague justification of ensuring market stability, immediately sparked distrust among investors. Within hours, social media platforms and specialized forums were flooded with speculation that NeoPhoenix was on the brink of insolvency. The story quickly dominated financial news outlets and even reached the US. Congress fueling intensified calls for stricter regulations in the cryptocurrency sector. Behind the scenes, chaos reigned. Ethan Caldwell, the embattled CEO of NeoPhoenix, was fighting a war on multiple fronts. During an emergency meeting with his remaining executives, the company's internal systems were hacked. Sensitive data detailing illegal financial transactions and market manipulations was leaked to an anonymous site. Among the files were damning private conversations implicating Ethan in fraudulent activities. To make matters worse, Philip Keene, a trusted confidant, was revealed as a traitor. Philip abandoned the sinking ship, leaving behind a message that cut deep. "You gave me every reason to leave, Ethan. I won't go down with you. Good luck." Ethan knew Philip had orchestrated the data leak, but his instincts told him that the mysterious Mr. C was the mastermind pulling the strings. Loyalty within NeoPhoenix had crumbled, and Ethan found himself utterly alone. Meanwhile, Rachel Myers, a tenacious investigator at the SEC, faced her own storm. The data breach had confirmed her worst fears about NeoPhoenix's corruption. But buried in the mountain of leaked files, her team uncovered a crucial piece of evidence: a $2 billion transfer to an offshore account linked to a shell company controlled by Mr. C. This was the smoking gun she needed to formally charge him. Yet Rachel's victory was bittersweet. The public nature of the leaks risked derailing her investigation. With so much information now in the open, Mr. C and other perpetrators could destroy remaining evidence or flee before the SEC could act. Political pressure mounted as Mr. C's allies in government tried to block any aggressive moves against him. As the walls closed in on Ethan, a ghost from NeoPhoenix's past reappeared. David Zhang, a missing analyst presumed dead. Visibly shaken, David revealed he had narrowly escaped a kidnapping attempt after confronting the company's board. He brought explosive intel. Mr. C wasn't just siphoning funds for personal gain, but was also funneling them into shadowy crypto projects designed to manipulate the market on a larger scale. "Ethan," David warned, "Mr. C has already abandoned the ship. He's setting up his next move, and NeoPhoenix is just a pawn." The revelation forced Ethan to face an uncomfortable truth. If he wanted to survive, he needed to betray his enigmatic partner. But before he could act, another bombshell dropped. Major news outlets reported that Ethan himself was under investigation by the Department of Justice for money laundering and fraud, using evidence from the leaks. In a dramatic press conference, Rachel confirmed the SEC was formally pursuing a case against NeoPhoenix and its executives. But she dropped a tantalizing hint. The real target of the investigation was an external agent who had exploited NeoPhoenix for his gain. The public buzzed with speculation about Mr. C's identity. Desperate and cornered, Ethan arranged a clandestine meeting with Rachel. In the shadow of an empty parking lot, he offered to cooperate in exchange for protection. The tension was palpable. "You're not walking away from this, Ethan," Rachel said coldly. "I don't want to walk away. I want to bring down Mr. C, and you need me to do it," Ethan shot back, signaling his readiness to betray his former ally. Reluctantly, Rachel agreed. She knew Ethan was a snake, but also the key to dismantling Mr. C's empire. However, she made it clear, his cooperation wouldn't erase his sins. As NeoPhoenix spiraled toward collapse, Mr. C made his move. In a calculated strike, he liquidated his holdings in Phoenix Coin and funneled the remaining funds into a newly launched cryptocurrency under a pseudonym. The aftermath was catastrophic. Phoenix Coin's value plummeted to zero in hours, triggering a market-wide crash. Ethan watched helplessly as furious investors stormed NeoPhoenix's headquarters. Rachel, meanwhile, raced against time, preparing her team to issue an arrest warrant for Mr. C, though she suspected he had already disappeared. The fallout was monumental. NeoPhoenix's implosion marked a turning point in the crypto world, shattering trust and credibility across the industry. For Rachel, Ethan, and the countless lives caught in the crossfire, the fight was far from over. The dark underbelly of ambition and corruption had been exposed, but justice remained elusive. The question lingered. How far would they go to bring down a man who had turned the financial world into his personal playground? The collapse of Phoenix Coin triggered a catastrophic chain reaction across the cryptocurrency market. Major exchanges scrambled to manage mass withdrawals, while other stablecoins faced similar crises of confidence. Bitcoin, often seen as the safe harbor of crypto, plummeted by over 30% in just 1 week. Financial headlines blared with ominous warnings. Is this the end of cryptocurrency? And NeoPhoenix collapse drags global markets down. Companies with significant exposure to NeoPhoenix began filing for bankruptcy. Smaller banks, which had bet heavily on blockchain technology as part of their portfolios, found themselves in financial peril, creating a ripple effect that extended far beyond the crypto sphere. Investor confidence evaporated, leaving global regulators in a race against time to prevent a full-blown financial meltdown. For Ethan Caldwell, the fall of NeoPhoenix spelled the end of his career, and possibly his freedom. As he watched the company he built unravel, he was informed that a federal arrest warrant had been issued against him. Just before being taken into custody by federal agents, Ethan made a final public statement, broadcast live to millions. "I made mistakes, but I'm not the only one to blame. NeoPhoenix was manipulated by forces much larger than me, forces that put their interests above everyone else's. I take responsibility, but I demand that all those involved be brought to light." His words split public opinion. Some saw Ethan as a ruthless villain who had destroyed countless lives, while others believed he, too, had fallen prey to the mysterious Mr. C. But for Ethan, it was too late to salvage his reputation. Arrested on charges of fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering, Ethan entered negotiations with authorities, hoping to reduce his sentence by revealing information about Mr. C and other co-conspirators. Meanwhile, Rachel Myers, whose investigation into NeoPhoenix had exposed the scheme, received public recognition, but at a personal cost. Inside the SEC, some hailed her as a hero, while others blamed her for sparking the panic that fueled the crisis. Political pressure mounted, with senators holding public hearings to dissect the crypto market's collapse and its devastating economic consequences. During one such hearing, Rachel faced tough questioning about her role in NeoPhoenix's downfall. "I believe we did what was necessary to protect investors," Rachel stated firmly. "But this crisis is a stark reminder that the cryptocurrency market needs robust regulation and transparency. Without them, crises like this will continue to happen." Despite her resolute demeanor, Rachel knew her challenges were far from over. Lobbyists continued fighting against stricter regulations, and the elusive Mr. C remained a shadowy figure whose reach extended far beyond the public's grasp. Now identified as Charles Stanton, Mr. C had used multiple identities to orchestrate his illegal activities. With billions stashed in offshore accounts, Stanton had evaded U.S. authorities and vanished. Leaked reports suggested he was hiding in a country without extradition agreements, possibly Hong Kong or Dubai. But Rachel wasn't giving up. Working alongside international agencies, she managed to freeze a few of Stanton's accounts. Yet most of his fortune remained untouchable, and Stanton was already pouring his wealth into new cryptocurrency ventures, using pseudonyms to cover his tracks. While NeoPhoenix executives faced mounting investigations and lawsuits, the biggest losers were ordinary investors. Heartbreaking stories began to surface. Retirees who lost their life savings, young people who invested everything they had, and families now grappling with financial ruin. Protests erupted outside NeoPhoenix's former headquarters, with placards accusing Ethan and Stanton of stealing the future from millions. One protester, a young man named Liam, had met Ethan months before the collapse and believed in his vision of financial freedom. "I thought I was helping build something revolutionary," Liam told reporters, "but all I did was fund greed and corruption." In these stories fueled global movements demanding stricter regulations and harsher punishments for financial crimes tied to cryptocurrencies. The collapse of NeoPhoenix marked the dawn of a new era for the crypto industry. Governments worldwide began rolling out stringent measures, including mandatory financial reserves for stablecoins, greater transaction transparency, and compulsory audits. Smaller exchanges vanished, while larger players fought to survive under the weight of increased regulation. Despite the crisis, some analysts predicted eventual recovery, arguing that regulation could restore trust in the market. In a media interview, Rachel reflected on this possibility. "Perhaps this is an opportunity to rebuild the industry on a stronger foundation, but we must never forget the human cost of this collapse." NeoPhoenix, now a symbol of greed and disaster, became a case study for regulators and investors alike. Ethan Caldwell, disgraced and imprisoned, awaited his trial, while Charles Stanton became a dark legend in the financial world. For Rachel, the fight was far from over, but she knew her persistence had sown the seeds of a more accountable system. Locked in a federal cell, Ethan Caldwell had plenty of time to reflect on the decisions that landed him there. While many viewed him as the primary culprit behind NeoPhoenix's catastrophic collapse, Ethan carried a quiet conviction. He had been manipulated. He admitted his ambitions had blinded his judgment, but felt the burden of guilt should not rest solely on his shoulders. In the months leading up to his trial, Ethan began cooperating with authorities. Through delicate negotiations with prosecutors, he provided detailed information about Mr. C and other interconnected financial schemes. Initially hesitant, fearing retaliation, Ethan realized that cooperation might be his only chance to reduce his sentence and salvage a shred of dignity. Ethan also showed signs of personal transformation. In handwritten letters to former employees and investors who had lost everything, he expressed remorse, admitting that his obsession with success had clouded his judgment. "I can't undo what happened, but I can help expose those who use NeoPhoenix to enrich themselves at your expense." Though many were skeptical, this gesture began to shift public perception. Investigative journalists delved into Ethan's ties with Mr. C, uncovering how he had been a pawn in a much larger scheme. His collaboration unearthed new international connections, aiding authorities in tracking down Mr. C's hidden assets. While Ethan fought to reclaim his tarnished reputation, Rachel Myers faced mounting challenges of her own. Her breakthrough investigation into NeoPhoenix had cemented her as a leading figure at the SEC. However, it also placed her under intense scrutiny from critics and powerful enemies. The political pressure was immense. Some argued that her crusade against NeoPhoenix had crippled the cryptocurrency market, while others hailed her as a hero who brought accountability to a lawless industry. Rachel, however, felt the weight of these expectations. With the NeoPhoenix crisis largely resolved, her focus shifted to an even more daunting task: tracking down Charles Stanton, the infamous Mr. C. In collaboration with international agencies, Rachel spearheaded operations to freeze Stanton's assets and trace his financial movements. Although he remained at large, her efforts recovered hundreds of millions of dollars from offshore accounts, which were redistributed to defrauded investors. These victories, while significant, could never fully compensate for the human and financial devastation caused by NeoPhoenix. At the same time, Rachel began to reflect on the personal sacrifices she had made for her career. Her relentless dedication to her work had strained relationships with friends and family, leaving her emotionally drained. A surprising request from Ethan for a meeting during the investigation offered her a new perspective. "I wanted to thank you for not giving up on me," Ethan said in an interrogation room. "You don't see it, but you're helping to change something bigger." Ethan's unexpected gratitude struck a chord. Rachel realized that despite the toll, her fight was making a difference. As Rachel's team worked tirelessly to dismantle his empire, Charles Stanton, now operating under the alias Damon Clark, was more active than ever. Hiding in Dubai, a financial haven with minimal oversight, Stanton was already scheming his next move, a revolutionary blockchain promising unparalleled security and privacy. Stanton's ability to adapt was unmatched. He knew his capture was only a matter of time, but his knack for manipulating narratives and financial systems gave him an edge. Using intermediaries to stay off the radar, he forged alliances with financial magnates eager to exploit the remnants of the cryptocurrency market. Simultaneously, Stanton crafted a public image as a champion of decentralization and financial freedom. His new venture was marketed as a way to empower ordinary people, a message carefully tailored to attract disillusioned investors. Behind the scenes, however, he operated with the same calculated ruthlessness that had made him one of the world's most notorious financial manipulators. While Stanton plotted, the cryptocurrency market showed signs of recovery. The introduction of stricter regulations restored some investor confidence. Major exchanges embraced transparent audits and increased their reserves to prevent future crises. Despite these reforms, the scars left by NeoPhoenix ran deep. Small investors, once fervent believers in the market, became wary. Many abandoned cryptocurrencies altogether, while others transformed into advocates for greater transparency and accountability. Ethan, even behind bars, became a polarizing figure, seen by some as a scapegoat and by others as a cautionary tale. Now serving a 15-year sentence following a plea deal, Ethan found purpose in telling his story. He began writing a book, Inside the Chaos: The Rise and Fall of NeoPhoenix, blending memoir and a scathing critique of the cryptocurrency industry. While controversial, his writings served as both a confession and a warning. Rachel, meanwhile, gained new allies in her quest for a more transparent financial system. Her unwavering determination inspired a new generation of regulators and economists to seek a balance between financial innovation and public safety. Yet, her battle against Charles Stanton was far from over. Each victory was merely a step in a much larger fight, and somewhere in Dubai, Damon Clark was quietly setting the stage for his next revolution. As hunt for Charles Stanton's remaining assets intensified, Rachel Myers was blindsided by an explosive data leak. Detailed documents exposing Stanton's covert operations surfaced on an anonymous online forum. Among the revelations was concrete evidence that Stanton had partnered with global financial conglomerates to launch a new cryptocurrency called Shadow Coin, all under fake identities and through a network of shell companies. Rachel recognized the immense value of this intel but couldn't shake the suspicion. The leak felt orchestrated, as if Stanton himself wanted to throw his partners under the bus while keeping himself in the shadows. Together with her team, Rachel dove into the data and unearthed an unsettling irony. Several names tied to Shadow Coin were prominent banking executives involved in regulatory efforts. They were drafting laws to protect investors, while simultaneously bankrolling Stanton's next con. This discovery left Rachel with a moral quandary. Should she expose the names immediately, risking a legal mess, or use the intel to build a watertight case against Stanton? The clock was ticking. Shadow Coin's launch was imminent, and once it went live, Stanton would gain an untraceable advantage. Meanwhile, Ethan Caldwell, Stanton's former right-hand man turned prisoner, received a surprise visitor, David Zhang, now a SEC collaborator. David came armed with insider information. Stanton had left behind digital breadcrumbs leading to his new scheme. The catch? The data was heavily encrypted, and only Ethan, intimately familiar with Stanton's systems, could crack it. "Do you still want to redeem yourself, Ethan?" David asked. Ethan hesitated. This was his chance to salvage his dignity, but it also meant facing the man who had manipulated and ruined him. Finally, Ethan agreed to help, on one condition. "I want to testify against Stanton in person. I won't be just another pawn for the SEC. I need to see him fall." Rachel was reluctant to trust Ethan, but realized his expertise was indispensable. A deal was struck. Ethan would work remotely from a secure, heavily monitored environment. As Rachel accelerated plans to sabotage Shadowcoin's launch, Stanton faced a crisis of his own. One of his key allies, billionaire investor Alexander Grayson, whom Ethan had approached in vain months earlier, decided to sever ties. Feeling the heat of global investigations, Grayson reached out to Rachel, offering damning evidence against Stanton in exchange for immunity. Grayson's intel was a bombshell. Stanton planned to use Shadowcoin's launch to liquidate his remaining hidden accounts and vanish for good. Grayson also tipped Rachel off about a clandestine meeting Stanton had arranged in Hong Kong, where he intended to finalize Shadowcoin's operations and shuffle billions across hidden channels. As the countdown to Shadowcoin's launch loomed, the cryptocurrency market spiraled into chaos. News of Stanton's involvement leaked, but rather than spooking investors, it sparked a speculative frenzy. Greedy traders bet they could profit before the scheme inevitably imploded. Rachel could only watch in frustration as Wall Street's short-term mentality fueled another disaster waiting to happen. Back at his workstation, Ethan made a chilling discovery. While decrypting Stanton's trail, he unearthed a deeper layer to the plot. Shadowcoin wasn't just a get-rich-quick scheme. It was designed to power a self-sustaining blockchain immune to government or regulatory control. "He wants to be untouchable," Ethan told Rachel during a frantic late-night call. "This isn't just about money, it's about power." This revelation raised the stakes. Capturing Stanton wasn't just a matter of justice. It was about preventing him from destabilizing global markets once again. With Grayson's cooperation, Rachel mobilized an international task force in partnership with Interpol. Their mission? Intercept Stanton in Hong Kong before Shadowcoin went live. The operation had to be flawless. Stanton's resources and cunning made him a constant flight risk. But just hours before the raid, Rachel received devastating news. Someone inside Interpol had leaked their plans. Stanton had changed the location of his meeting, throwing the entire mission into disarray. Now, the team had to act on incomplete intel, increasing the risk of failure. While chaos unfolded, Ethan made a breakthrough. He discovered a forgotten backup server Stanton had overlooked in his rush. Through it, Ethan pinpointed Stanton's exact location, a luxury hotel in Hong Kong. He transmitted the coordinates to Rachel, but not before leaving Stanton a taunting message in the hacked system. "See you soon." The final showdown was set. On a sweltering night in Hong Kong, the city buzzed with energy as Rachel Myers and her Interpol team prepared for the defining moment of their operation. Guided by the coordinates provided by Ethan Caldwell, they tracked down Charles Stanton to a luxury penthouse in Kowloon, where he was meeting with high-level accomplices. The mission was clear: intercept Stanton before he could finalize the transfer of billions tied to the launch of Shadowcoin. The team moved swiftly, surrounding the building and jamming digital signals to prevent Stanton or his associates from alerting the outside world. Inside the penthouse, Stanton was glued to his screens, monitoring the markets in real time. He knew Shadowcoin's launch was imminent, but something felt off. His monitors displayed cryptic error messages, and his external contacts had gone silent. Suddenly, a message flashed on his main system. "You can run, but you can never hide. Ethan." Stanton froze. His systems had been compromised. He barked orders to his associates to destroy the remaining servers, but it was too late. Rachel and her team stormed the penthouse, apprehending Stanton and his co-conspirators. One of the accomplices made a desperate attempt to flee but was quickly subdued. Stanton, however, remained unnervingly calm, even smirking as he was handcuffed. "You think you've won," he said, his tone dripping with confidence, "but I've already won." As Stanton was taken into custody, Rachel began combing through the seized documents and devices. To her dismay, she discovered that Stanton had orchestrated the entire operation, knowing he would be caught. He had left automated instructions to siphon off a significant portion of his funds into encrypted accounts moments before his arrest. Shadowcoin had launched mere minutes before the raid, and the ensuing scandal only fueled investor frenzy, driving up the cryptocurrency's value. The revelation hit Rachel's team hard. Even behind bars, Stanton had constructed a network so resilient it continued to operate in his absence. Disabling it would require years of painstaking investigation. Meanwhile, Shadowcoin's launch sent shockwaves through the financial world, igniting a new wave of speculation. Back in the US, Ethan was granted a video conference with Stanton during the initial interrogation. It was the first time they had come face to face since the crisis began. Visibly shaken, Ethan confronted Stanton. "You destroyed everything, my company, my reputation, my future. For what?" Ethan's voice was thick with anger and despair. Stanton laughed, unrepentant. "You did that to yourself, Ethan. I just gave you the tools. And here's the irony, even now you still don't get it. This system isn't meant to be controlled. It was designed to be chaos." Their exchange revealed Stanton's true motives. He wasn't just after wealth. He sought to expose the vulnerabilities of a financial system built on trust and manipulation. For him, this wasn't a crime. It was a legacy, a challenge to governments and institutions that would resonate for decades. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Ethan replied, "Your legacy is destruction, Charles. And in the end, you'll be forgotten too." As the investigation deepened, Stanton was formally charged with a litany of financial crimes, including money laundering, fraud, and market manipulation. His trial became a global spectacle, drawing intense media scrutiny. Former allies and accomplices testified against him, revealing the intricate details of his operations. Yet Stanton remained unfazed, often delivering provocative remarks in court. From his prison cell, Ethan watched the trial unfold. Despite his cooperation with authorities, he couldn't shake the burden of guilt. However, his testimony proved critical in recovering millions of dollars that Stanton had siphoned away, providing some restitution for the defrauded investors. Rachel Myers emerged as a hero in the fight for justice. Her relentless pursuit of Stanton turned her into a symbol of integrity in the financial sector. Yet she knew their victory was incomplete. Shadowcoin continued to thrive, with speculators flocking to its volatile market for quick profits. Stanton's capture marked the end of a chaotic chapter in cryptocurrency history, but unsettling questions lingered. Even in prison, his influence endured, as his ideas found fertile ground among others in the industry. Although the crypto market grew more regulated, investor confidence remained shaken. At a press conference following Stanton's conviction, Rachel summed up the prevailing sentiment. "This is just the beginning. There's still so much work to be done to ensure that financial markets, whether traditional or digital, serve the people, not the greed of the few." Meanwhile, Ethan, now isolated and introspective, began working on a second book. This time he vowed to tell the unvarnished truth about NeoPhoenix, not as a justification, but as a cautionary tale for the next generation of entrepreneurs. He wanted to highlight the devastating cost of unchecked ambition and greed. Stanton's arrest might have ended his direct reign of chaos, but the ripple effects of his actions would be felt for years. The rise of Shadowcoin served as both a warning and a lesson about the fragile intersection of technology, finance, and human ambition. The question that remained, would the world learn from it, or repeat the cycle? The rise and fall of NeoPhoenix and its flagship cryptocurrency, Phoenix Coin, sent shockwaves through the financial world, leaving behind a trail of destruction and forcing a reckoning with the dangers of unchecked ambition. What began as a revolutionary promise of technological advancement spiraled into one of the most dramatic collapses in financial history, shattering lives and reshaping an entire market. When NeoPhoenix crumbled, the fallout was catastrophic. Confidence in the cryptocurrency sector was decimated. Smaller exchanges closed their doors, and even the largest players found themselves struggling to survive in an environment suddenly dominated by regulatory scrutiny. Billions of dollars in value evaporated almost overnight, leaving governments around the globe with no choice but to act. New regulations demanded that stablecoins provide regular audits of their reserves, while major exchanges were forced to adopt unprecedented transparency policies. For many, these measures came too late. The hardest hit were the small investors, ordinary people who had poured their savings into what they believed was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for financial freedom. Instead, they found themselves financially ruined. Some abandoned the crypto market altogether, while others channeled their anger into activism, demanding stricter oversight to prevent future disasters. The market survived, but it emerged forever changed, more controlled, less risky, and for some, stripped of the allure that had drawn them in. Ethan Caldwell, the once charismatic face of NeoPhoenix, saw his world collapse alongside the company he helped create. After cooperating with authorities, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison for fraud and conspiracy. While incarcerated, Ethan began writing a book titled Inside the Collapse: The Price of Ambition, blending his personal confessions with a scathing critique of the financial system that had both enabled and destroyed him. The book's reception was deeply polarizing. To many, Ethan was the villain who ruined countless lives. To others, he was as much a victim as anyone else, manipulated by the enigmatic Charles Stanton, known to the world as Mr. C. Despite his notoriety, Ethan's cooperation helped recover millions for defrauded investors, offering a glimmer of redemption. Rachel Myers became a national hero. Her relentless determination to expose NeoPhoenix's fraudulent practices brought justice to those who had been wronged. Her testimony before Congress was a turning point, as she championed the need for stricter regulations to ensure that a crisis like NeoPhoenix could never happen again. But her victory came at a personal cost. The pressures of fighting powerful financial interests took a toll on her emotionally, but Rachel persevered. She continued her work, tracking down Stanton's hidden assets and becoming a symbol of integrity in the financial world. Charles Stanton, or Mr. C, remained a looming shadow even after his capture. Stanton had siphoned billions of dollars into a network of hidden accounts before being caught, and parts of his financial empire continued to operate without him. During his trial, Stanton portrayed himself as a rebel against a corrupt system, claiming his actions exposed the hypocrisy of global finance. His defiance, however, did not save him from a life sentence in prison. Even behind bars, his myth persisted. Imitators arose, inspired by his audacity, while whispers of his ongoing influence haunted the cryptocurrency market. The collapse of NeoPhoenix became a cautionary tale, studied in universities and business schools worldwide. It served as a reminder of the devastating consequences of innovation without responsibility and the ethical dilemmas inherent in an unregulated financial system. At a press conference following Stanton's sentencing, Rachel Myers reflected on the broader significance of their work. Her words resonated deeply. This isn't just about bringing Stanton to justice or exposing NeoPhoenix. It's a wake-up call, a stark warning that innovation without accountability is a recipe for disaster. There's still so much work to be done. Ethan Caldwell, now out of the public eye, dedicated himself to quietly aiding regulators in identifying emerging frauds, hoping to prevent others from making the same mistakes. Meanwhile, the cryptocurrency market began to rebuild. It was more regulated and, for some, less thrilling, but it offered a semblance of security that had been absent before. Trust, however, was harder to restore, and the scars of the collapse lingered. Years after the fall of NeoPhoenix, Rachel Myers stood in her Washington office, gazing out the window. The financial landscape had transformed. Cryptocurrencies were now stable, perhaps even predictable, but the adventurous spirit that once defined the market had faded. Ethan Caldwell had become a quiet figure, working in the background as a consultant. Charles Stanton, though imprisoned, continued to cast a long shadow, with every unexplained surge in blockchain activity sparking speculation about his involvement. As Rachel reviewed a new report detailing suspicious movements in a recently launched cryptocurrency, a thought crossed her mind. Is this the end or just the beginning? The story of NeoPhoenix is more than a tale of ambition, greed, and betrayal. It's a stark reminder of the high stakes of innovation without oversight and the devastating consequences for those caught in its wake. What do you think the future of cryptocurrency holds? Can freedom and responsibility coexist in this volatile world? If this story captured your imagination, don't forget to like, share, and comment. Let us know your thoughts. Your voice could spark the next great conversation about the balance between progress and accountability. Together, we can shape a more secure and equitable financial future.